I'm excited about speaking to my guest today. He is a one of a kind, a guru when it comes to SEO. And whether he would call himself a guru or not, I don't know, but we'll find out a little bit when we have our conversation. You're going to learn about SEO, why it's important, why you should do it. We've talked about it on this show many times, but the most important piece is that you take away something from today's conversation with Mr. Wendell Jordan. And but before we do that, I'm Micah Logan. This is the Common Sense Show. All right, welcome to our conversation today. We have Wendell Jordan Jr., right? Do I have to say the junior part in there?
Well, you don't have to, but it's I do. My dad does have the same name, so I started putting junior on things as a child, and I never stopped. So,
okay, all right,
yeah.
Wendell Jordan Jr. I always wonder why, like, the football players and the basketball players now have it, but it makes sense. You're a passionate and dedicated professional in the web design and the digital marketing space. You're the owner of Jordan Marketing Consultants, which is a digital marketing agency focused on high ROI. We're going to focus on that today, marketing solutions. And you, along with your expert team, promote business with compelling digital marketing strategies. What I find fascinating is that when I spoke to you even before the podcast today, one of the things that you said was you're trying to help individuals in a lower cost way, in an affordable way than some solutions that are currently present. But, it doesn't take away from the high level that you deliver to your clients. So Wendell Jordan Jr., welcome to the Common Sense Show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the overall funny thing about my name, right? Because I've done this a few times, and that's usually the question, right? Is the junior important? The junior is important because I grew up in the house with my father. My father actually pronounces his name Wendell. So as a child, my mother would say Wendell, and we both would answer. So I started saying, we're going to change the enunciation of my name. And that's why I go with Wendell. Now, depending on what part of the country you're in, it's Wendell, it's Wendell, it's Wendell, right? Depends on what kind of drawl you've got. But the junior is important just so you're talking to me and not my dad.
What's funny is, like, a lot of families, they just call the son Junior because
right.
I've
never been junior. I've never been junior. No, that's the funny part. I've never been junior. No one's ever referred to me as junior. That never happened.
Seems like the easiest solution, though, to solve that problem.
This is true. I mean, in 38 years, I forged a new way of doing the junior thing. Just change the enunciation. Don't even worry about the junior part.
Right.
You don't got to call you junior. Just change the enunciation.
So you were a trailblazer at how old? 7, 8 years old? Is that what you told you?
Yeah, that's about right. In fact, yeah.
Okay.
That's about right. Yeah, maybe even 5, 6. I think I was still in kindergarten. when the Wendell started. Yeah.
Well, big brains start early, so there's that. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wendell, so let's tell us a little bit about yourself. I kind of gave the audience a little bit of a rundown about who you are, but you can tell us a little bit about what we don't know about you and what your goal was in focusing on digital marketing.
So a little bit about me. This digital marketing thing, it was an accident. It all started because I had a business partner. He actually, let me go back. I was in sales for years. He knew I was a good salesman. So he asked me if I wanted to sell websites for him. And I did maybe 1 or 2. And then he said, well, why don't we be 50-50 partners? Right. Because he later shared that he did it so I would have the incentive to sell as many as possible since I was getting half. But we ended up getting enough clients to where he had to start showing me how to do some stuff inside of WordPress. We worked with small businesses at the time, local small businesses that were in the New York City area. That's where I grew up. Not where I'm from. That's where I grew up. So we got to this point, and he started showing me stuff in WordPress. I started, dragging and dropping and figuring stuff out, but never really wanted to get into it. I used to ask him questions about SEO and stuff like that, and I didn't care, but people would ask me. So him and I get to this point. We start going in different directions, and I start what at the time was titled Jordan Consults. So that was the original business that I started on my own. And we were a one-stop shop. We did everything, anything digital, we did it. We did lots of logos, lots of flyers, and just anything that could cover a bill, really. I started venturing into more of a consultative approach during that Jordan Consultants phase, and realized that these websites that I had built with my old agency and to date didn't have any substance really, right? Like we were lacking the thing that allowed people to get to the website. Websites they would only last maybe a year or two. And then, I'm looking for new stuff to show as a portfolio piece and all these other things. So really I get here because I realized that I was leaving something out for the client. So I started learning more and more about SEO, more specifically local SEO, because historically all my clients are local businesses, brick and mortar businesses, service-based businesses. So, it started to become more and more important that when you're looking for something, you need to be able to find it within a locality. And what I've taken the time over the last few years to do is really understand what that means from a marketing perspective.
It's it's funny you say that, because basically at the end of the day, almost all businesses are local businesses, right? And there are a few exceptions to that. The few businesses may be large businesses or medium-sized businesses with a global reach and a global customer base, but
Right.
almost all businesses are local businesses. So when it comes to visibility and discoverability, that's really key. I found that myself when I do part of my job is small business consulting, and so I do small business consulting with certain businesses, and my focus is on building systems and processes to complement. Basically, you send the leads in through your SEO strategies, and then I help them create the process to do sales, to actually the process to indoctrinate those people who are coming in, have them become customers, and then ultimately remain customers with retention and stuff like that.
Right.
And so one thing I found was that a lot of people wanted to spend money on marketing and lead generation, but they never thought about how to teach a man to fish, basically how to create something that could self-feed their lead generation for a long period of time. And that's a massive hole that I don't think that many small business owners or people who are just entering business even understand, because it's not really talked about that much.
So when you talk about lead generation, I mean, the interesting thing is what you do is what I originally thought I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So when I started Jordan Consults, the Consults was supposed to be me being a consultant to help small businesses sell, to help those. Again, I have a robust sales background. So I'm one of the few things I'm very boastful about is I'm really good at selling, right? So I'm always willing to teach people how to sell. But the thing that I realized, and I want you to answer this question, I couldn't get anyone that was willing. I never met a business owner that was like, man, I really want to be able to sell my product better, or manage the people that I do sell to and be able to have higher conversions and even get to the point where we're having a stronger retention. But you're right. I mean, most business owners, lead generation it's an abstract thought. It's a word. It's not really a process.
Right. And that's, so there are many different things when it comes to lead generation that goes into it. Like we're talking about now. I think this is important for people to understand. So the first piece is that lead generation refers to, it could refer to brand awareness, right? Because people need to know who you are. Lead generation is also about creating know, like, and trust factors, so that when a person does ultimately decide that they want to do business with you, that they're doing business with you because they know your philosophy and they may have seen you and they liked you, and they want to engage your services because of who they think you are, from how they've observed you. But you're right. The other piece of that is the fact that you have to service these individuals once they come in, and most people don't have systems. Believe it or not, if I were to put a number on it, I would say 70% or more of small business owners do not have a system for what they do with the lead once they come in. I think they're excited to have customers come in.
Right.
And I think that they probably close a certain percentage of those, but I bet you their sales rates would double, triple, or quadruple if they had a repeatable process by which they did things on a regular basis. Right. Once they got that lead.
Right. No, certainly. I mean, that's something that I witnessed in working with, like you said, my job is to generate the leads. So when we get the leads into any CRM or anything like that, the questions that I'm asking, when they come in, I have one specific client and we're generating traffic to the site. His Google My Business is going really well. but he keeps telling me that no one's calling. Now, there's statistics that show otherwise, but the trouble that he has is the people answering the phone. Because I used to be on the phone as a salesperson, I know that they're not looking at data, they're going by emotion. So like you said, there is no process once the people call. So if the person isn't excitedly having their credit card in hand, they don't consider that a phone call, right? Oh, it was just a bad lead. They're not looking at, how they're overcoming the objections and all those other things. But yeah, lead generation is robust, man.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing. So let me ask you about SEO, 3 letters that are very important to website, digital marketing, but 3 letters that are also misunderstood or not thought of at all, completely passed over in the night by individuals who should be doing it but don't do it. And so SEO stands for search engine optimization. Can you explain what search engine optimization is?
Yeah. Can you explain what search engine optimization is? All right. So search engine optimization is we're going to look at it solely from web design, because that's a part of what we do here at Jordan Marketing Consultants. So when we're looking at search engine optimization, there's technical pieces and then there's the actual search pieces, right? So the technical pieces are like page speed, is your website responsive, how, and believe it or not, every site does not automatically index on a search engine, right? It's not automatically searchable. So can it be searched, right? How are the search engines understanding the content that you're putting out? The other part of search engine optimization is understanding what the user is looking for and how you're able to help them find the answer, which ironically, Google has spent probably the last year and a half really impressing upon SEOs, people like me that deal in the SEO space, that your content is starting to become more and more important. So when you think of search engine optimization, you're optimizing a website, specifically a website that not only has the user experience, right? That when people get to the site, it's not convoluted, they can get to where they need to go easily. It's mobilely responsive, right? So we say responsive now because you used to say mobile responsive, but responsive. So no matter the size of the screen, all the information is legible and easy to read. And then we start talking about, are you answering the questions of the user? So those are the 3 key pieces of SEO, from my perspective.
It's funny because I work with a couple of marketing firms here for my business and for my businesses. And one of the things that we did when I first engaged them was they basically whipped out their cell phone in the digital agency, and they went to my website. And the ironic thing was that my font was too small.
Right.
And there were too many words and the font was too small and the page wasn't broken up. And it's amazing how, and now this is kind of more speaking about web design. And I think that we might have to have you back to talk about web design, because there are things that there's a hierarchy of web design that is really important to make sure that when a person is going to a website, that they're actually seeing things and getting text broken up, because no one wants to see the Declaration of Independence.
I was getting ready to say
no one's to the website.
Yeah, no one's looking for a novel when they get to the website, and those are struggles, man. Those are struggles when you look at. And I look at some of the sites that we've inherited. One thing someone asked me, well, actually, it's a common question: do we have to redesign the website? Mm-hmm. Now, my statement is usually the same. I do have stake in this game, right? So is it a weighted answer for me to say yes? Absolutely. It changes the scope of the project. However, we can't just keep, trying to pack a hole that's already too deep to fill. So when you look at web design, and like you said, we won't venture too far down that road, but when you look at web design, you think about it as a business owner, and especially some of these business owners that are more hands-on with their business, right? Like, those that are very service related, that are still managing the project, that are actually cutting the lawns, that are actually doing the plumbing, whatever it may be, the construction, whatever it may be, the restaurant owner. It's really hard to take the time to look at a website and objectively say, this menu works really well, and no one has to pinch and pull in order to find out how much something costs, or to figure out which part is the appetizers versus which part is the desserts. Those are all things that, from a business side, I hear it all the time. Well, it's done, right? Like, it's not, So web design it's a really in-depth thing. Like you said, there is a hierarchy. You do have to know what you're looking at and just to double back to that SEO piece, even when we're talking about the menus, if you think about it from a user perspective, when you're looking for XYZ thing and it comes up in a variety of different ways, sometimes it's the page, the actual website page that you're looking for. Sometimes it's a piece of data from that same website that Google has decided answers your question the fastest way possible. Maybe it's a PDF with the menu, as opposed to actually getting to the website to see the menu, right? So like now, especially as smart as search engines are today, there's so many things that go into that search piece that you don't want to be left standing, in your underwear, so to speak, not realizing that no one's understanding the data that you're giving them, because it's not that traditional thing where they can only come to the homepage and then you have to force them to walk to a certain direction.
Yeah. So let's tie this back to something practical that business owners can use a bit. And, because I kind of nerd out on this stuff. It's not my expertise, but I nerd out on it because, I built a lot of my own websites and so in consulting, what I do is I look at a person's website and I have my own, I use just a 1 to 10 scale.
Okay.
I look at the website and I say, well, your website's a 5. In order for you to lead generate, it has to be between an 8 and a 10. Right.
Okay.
And that's the kind of the scale I use. It's very simple for them to understand. And, but there's a lot that goes into that. Right. So it's just not, so to go from, 7 to 8 is a huge jump, right? There's things that need to get done. To go from an 8 to a 9 is almost perfect. Nobody will ever be a 10. So whenever someone says their website's a 10, it's like you're lying, because there's no website that's a 10 out there.
Right. But there's always things to be done different.
Always. So let's talk about, so let's just break the search engine optimization down. I'm thinking about some of the listeners that have either messaged me or called me, emailed me, and they're going to want it like an even simpler explanation of SEO. And so one of the things I'm thinking is to explain it is when you go to Google, like we all do, to search for something, it could be anything. It could be, the best breakfast place near me. It could be the best pizza near me, Greek pizza, Italian pizza, whatever it is. In my case, a personal trainer near me or digital marketing agency near me.
Right.
You put that search in. Search engine optimization is based off of your definition, how Google presents to you the results using the words that you typed in to search. So like you type in the search query that you want. Let's say let's go back to the first one, best breakfast places near me. Google's going to present to you in the most optimal way the results based off of your search terms. So not just keywords, but the terms that you're using. So for instance, if there's a breakfast place that uses best breakfast in whatever town they're in, and they put that on their website, and no other breakfast place put best breakfast place on their website, and you search that in, and Google identifies your location, it's probably more likely that you're going to end up at the website of the place that maybe included words like best breakfast in their website.
So now, just to double down on that, you're going even deeper. You're going into local SEO, which is actually really the thing that I enjoy more than SEO, only because, or rather, let me give the differentiation. So when you start talking about near me, an SEO campaign is something that usually has a national reach. Local SEO is truly local. So no matter where your business is located, usually the business is located where they want that locality search. But let's just say I'm in the greater Houston area, right? So, and these terms may mean nothing to you, but Sugarland versus Webster, both local to Houston, but an hour apart from each other. So when we're talking about the best breakfast place, we want to make sure that our user understands we're the best Belgian waffle place in Webster, right? Because if they're in Webster, we don't want them to find the one in Sugarland first. We want them to come to us if they're in Webster. So when you start talking about that near me piece, you're really getting into that local SEO component. The one thing that has changed drastically over the years, like you said, to give somebody something tangible, is once upon a time, we could just put best Belgian waffles in Webster and Google would say, you're good, let's move forward. But now Google goes, well, what else does the page say? Are you explaining why it's the best? Are you giving context to why you're the best Belgian waffle place as opposed to a different type of waffle? Do you not serve pancakes? are you the best breakfast or is it just waffles, right? Like there's just so many different things that now Google's asking the question of that website, of that content. And the cool thing is it's becoming a more authentic conversation on the internet, right? So now, once upon a time, you used to be able to just stack keywords, put them in the headings, and if you knew where to put them, it didn't matter how bad the site was even designed. But now, aside from design, when you're looking at just content, you want to make sure that if you are looking at a local search, right, like you said, the near me's, you want to be sure that you're articulating who you are as a business, so that Google can put you in the best position for your right customer.
So stories matter then.
Absolutely. Stories matter now more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Stories matter now more than ever.
So that algorithm that Google uses, that AI that they've built, is smarter than us. It's smarter than individuals who are actually doing the search.
It is creepily smart. When most recently Google mentioned that they're changing page titles in the search results based on content. So like that's how robust this AI has become, where you may say it's this, but we're going to tell everyone else it's something different, potentially that it's something else different, solely because they want to make sure that when their user goes through it, they're finding, like you said, they optimize the result for you. Now, one thing that I try to make sure that I say as often as possible, we got to use the word search engines, because Bing still exists, even though Google is the place where we all live, right? And let's just be fair, because they do make up, I think, like 90% of search. But I always say search engines just because, even in some platforms frown upon it, but there are some ways for you to be able to go within, let's say, a Yelp or another, or like a directory-based listing, and be able to kind of key in or optimize the way that you're describing your business. So as a business owner, you do have to be mindful, if we're talking about Thumbtack or Yelp or whatever the platform is, not just in Google, all of these platforms are using some form of AI to help their user get to the best ofs, aside from sponsorship, right? Because those sponsored ads, no matter what the platform, are always going to be number one.
Right. So, okay. So I'm a local business owner. I own, Wendell Jr.'s breakfast place, right? And I serve Belgian waffles, just to keep it on message here. How do I tap into the Matrix, right? Remember that movie, The Matrix, with Neo and Morpheus, and they're making another one. And I was
going to say they're making another one too.
I'm excited for it. Okay. And I want to plug into the streams, right? So like, because Google has this AI search in, and look, I'm in Houston, and I don't want a person going out of Houston to try to figure out, where to get a Belgian waffle. I'm right here. So how do I tap in content wise? So you talked about content or information that you're providing on the website. How do I tap in to that matrix? How do I plug in? How do I get my share of this search result, so that when someone in Houston is plugging this in, they come to my business? Like, what are some of the content pieces I have to provide?
So, man, I'm trying to make this as relatable as possible. So the first thing I tell every business owner, things that you don't need agencies for, right? Like, let's just say you are your Wendell Jordan Jr.'s or Wendell Jr.'s Belgian waffles. We just opened. We don't know what our marketing looks like. Find your Google My Business. If your business isn't listed,
chicken and waffles, because we're both black. So
okay, right, yeah, chicken and waffles. We'll be fair. We'll be fair. Now, sadly, the world will find this out. I've only had chicken and waffles once, right?
Really?
Like I'm like, there's some things that my black card could be revoked for, man. Like I'm not a big chicken and waffle kind of guy.
Maybe it's not a Texas thing. Maybe it's a little further east.
I'm a New Yorker though. Like I'm a New Yorker at heart, but like
that's true.
I'm not a South guy. Like that's really a South thing.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Like now pizza, we could talk for days, but there's lots of things we could have oxtails. Like we could do oxtail talk.
Yeah.
There's lots of things. There's lots of other things we could do. But either way, let's just say it's chicken and waffles. Now, the first thing you want to do is look to see if you're on Google My Business. When you type in your business name, you're going to see that box on the right-hand side. It'll either say own this business or it won't be there at all. And then you'll be able to go through that process. That's the first thing that you want to do to make sure that your business is being found locally.
So Google My Business.
Yes,
so Google My business. So let's talk about that first.
Okay.
So Google My Business is something that Google provides for free, right?
Absolutely free.
For every business
Absolutely
out
free.
there.
Every single business. There are very few businesses that cannot get a Google My Business page, even if you are a service-based industry or any service-based industry and you don't have a physical location. Don't let that deter you. You can do a service area Google My Business page. So there is a very slim, and I don't know the list, but there's a very slim list of businesses that cannot get Google My Business listings. But a Google My Business listing is completely free. You do not need an agency to set it up. There is no account manager for that kind of stuff. You just type in the business, type in your business, find out if it already has a listing, because sometimes they have listings already because someone wrote a review about how good the chicken and waffles were, but you didn't know that they wrote it on Google. So now you see it, you claim it, they're going to go through that process with you. And the process has changed over the years. They used to let you do it over the phone, but now they're back to the address verification for a plethora of reasons, for a lot of fraud, frankly, for a lot of fraud and scams. But that Google My Business is going to be paramount, man, because it puts you in, and I don't want to roll too far down this rabbit hole, but I'm sure if you're a business owner, if you looked at SEO, you've heard about a local pack. That local pack is going to be a part of that Google My Business. So usually businesses that have a Google My Business are going to be in those first three location results when you're talking about a local search.
Yeah, that is absolutely key, because again, if you're listening to this podcast, you're more than likely a business owner who is located in a place where you want to be found. So in order to be found, number one, get a Google My Business listing. I think that's
big
key.
number one. Big number one. Make sure that all your information is up to date on there. The next thing is to then go back to that website.
Let me just say the metrics are incredible on the Google My listing. So I went to my Google My listing. I check it. I do. If you have a website, own a business, and you have a website, you should be doing reputation management, which basically means going on the internet, Googling yourself, and seeing what people are saying about you in the community. That's a simple way to do that. And then looking at how many people are actually looking at you. I went to my Google My Business profile, and in like 14 days, we had 17,000 people view our profile.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And there's now, this is the part where an agency becomes handy. Especially if you're a brick and mortar location, there's a posting tool. We can work with you to create posts and stuff like that. Making sure that you have, again, if you're a brick and mortar location, making sure that you have pictures of the outside of the business, pictures of the inside, all the things that are important to your business. Maybe you have some staff photos on there. There's a bunch of different things that we can add into that Google My Business that'll actually help with that visibility. The more active you are on that Google My Business listing, the more visibility you get. Now, like you said, the metrics, the analytics on it are crazy. I mean, you're supposed to, and I don't know, I've been using Google My Business so long that I think my default settings may not be default for everyone, but they usually send you a report every month. So every month you'll get the report and it'll tell you how many people looked at your website. If you have a phone number, how many people, called according to Google My Business. So then you'll know if you're answering the phone or not. And it'll always tell you how visible you are in search. And if you go into the tool, it'll actually give you details, and they've actually compartmentalized it into Google search, but they'll give you details on what keywords you're actually showing up for in search. So that'll help you. And something that you mentioned, just to go back, because you said terms, search terms. And this is not at the University of SEO or anything, but if Wendell's teaching the course, get rid of the thought of a keyword. There's only terms. So that's what I would say. So I wouldn't even think of a keyword. Really doesn't exist anymore. They're more search terms, right? So now because again, if you want to put keywords into things, it has to be in a sentence format anyway. So it becomes a statement, right? So, but yeah, it'll tell you what search terms you're being found on. Google My Business is awesome, man, especially for a free tool.
So search terms would be more like how people say things colloquially versus to say the exact word of what you're looking for, right?
So I'm gonna just pause you right there, and I'm gonna ask you to use a different word, because I'm gonna send this to my mother and a few other people, and they're not going to know that word, and they're going to say, Wendell's hanging out with people with their $25 word. So can you just use a different word? Then I don't even enunciate that well. Colloquially, I don't even enunciate that well.
Get you in trouble with your mama.
Man, don't do that.
Mama, here it is. So search terms is basically like how people say it.
Well, no, not search terms. Colloquially, that was the word. Yeah.
So colloquially, So colloquial means how people talk in a neighborhood, how people talk in a specific area, right? So like, for instance, how people search for your business in Houston, Wendell Jr.'s Chicken and Waffles may be different how they search Wendell's Jr. Chicken and Waffles in New York.
Right.
Or like Boston or Philly.
They may not say chicken and waffles. They may say chicken. They may say waffles, right? They may not put them together. Or when you start, like you mentioned, pizza was a great example. You said Greek pizza, which you're gonna have to explain to me what that would even be. But a Sicilian pizza versus a Detroit style versus Chicago style, and all those other different things, like you said, are going to be relatable. Like if you're in Chicago, the notion of searching for Chicago style pizza is a little tricky, right? Whereas if you're exactly. Whereas if you're in another part of the country, Chicago style pizza would be something that would be more niched. Right. But yeah, I mean, that's essentially the key. The key is not only thinking about how that locality uses, that their vernacular, right? Like their verbiage, but also looking at it as, just to give the example, when we're talking about this waffle place, are for best break, like, so you're gonna in my copy in the content on the website, I'm going to talk about how I have the best breakfast, right? Which in theory is the keyword, but it's now become a term, because I'm going to say I have the best breakfast in Webster, Texas. I have the best breakfast platters, right? Like, like I'm using all different types of terms. No longer are we searching for breakfast plus brunch, right? Like it's not natural. So that those are things that Google My Business will actually help you with, though. Like they'll give you keywords or terms, your search terms, and tell you how you're showing up, like the frequency. So you'll know that you're doing terrible for chicken and waffles because it's only showing up twice.
Right. Yeah. People could just be searching for Wendell Jr. and assuming that they're going to find your restaurant. So
exactly.
So then if you own the business, then if you're writing that paragraph, you might just say, Wendell Jr.'s was started in 2019. Right. And as opposed to saying like Wendell Jr.'s Chicken and Waffles was started, you would just say Wendell Jr.'s was started, blah, blah, blah. And then when they type in Wendell Jr., it would be established in blah, 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 in this state, in this town, and blah, blah.
Right.
Like it would give you that. Okay. So I think that's pretty clear for everyone. All right. So you've claimed your free Google My Business listing. And so what's another tool that they could use?
So now once you get done with that piece, and it's never really a done, but once you claim it and you put the most basic pieces on there, then you get back to the website. You're going to want to create content on the site that is relevant to who you want your customer to be, right? And you as the small business consultant, you're really the one that helps them with that customer profile. But you're going to walk them through that process, and then they're going to come back to the website and go, okay, I serve brunch. It's more of a hip hop-ish kind of brunch. It's more of a brunch party. So there's a certain group that I'm expecting to be at these brunch parties. I'm not catering this to 70-year-olds. Right. Not to say 70-year-olds can enjoy brunch parties, but there's only going to be a few of them. Right.
Right.
There's a certain demographic. So you want to make sure that you're using verbiage that relates to your demographic, that they're searching for it, again, to go back to those search terms, because it's not just the terms, it's the entire piece of the content. So when you're describing, the DJ party that's going to happen on Sundays or whatever it is, maybe it's a Saturday and Sunday thing, whatever it may be, you want to make sure that you're providing that content. Now, something to do with that Google My Business is depending on what it is that you do, right? Because we're using a restaurant reference, but I did a lot with service-based industry. So if you're a service-based industry, and again, go back, plumbers, electricians, contractors, all those kind of people. If you're an accountant, you want to there's a products and services section in that Google My Business that you're going to want to link your product or service back to the website. So that when someone is on the Google My Business page and they see, to take it off of the restaurant, and they see that you're a tax preparer, you want to make sure that you have the details on the Google My Business. They're going to click to learn more. They're going to go back to the website. So that's going to help with your website traffic. That's going to put you, like you said, it's going to put you into the parade. You're going to be able to be a part of the parade now, as opposed to standing on the outside watching all the floats go by.
And so does that link between the Google My List, like that physical link between the products page and your website do something too? Does it help the website with?
It's kind of a backlink, but I mean, you know, it's like, it is a backlink. You are good at this because you walked me in a path. I like it. It is a backlink, you know, and I'll explain what a backlink is, but backlinks, the authority of Google My Business page is paramount. However, if you've got 5 services and those are the only 5 backlinks you have, it's a moot point, right? Like it's not, you know, it's nothing worth mentioning. But it does help you with your domain authority more than anything else. Right. So it helps, it reinforces the fact that search engines should trust you, because this Google My Business page, which is verified and claimed, links back to a website that for all intents and purposes should be verified as well. So it does create that trust factor that you mentioned in the beginning.
So the first way to get found essentially in a locality is to become validated by Google that you are a legitimate business in the area that serves customers and does what you say you do, right? That's essentially what claiming your Google My Business page is, right? And then starting to link your products and services to your website, which is you're telling Google, you're raising your hand saying, I exist right here in the Houston area, and I serve these customers. I want you to find me, and I want you to tell other people that I exist when they're looking for chicken and waffles or a plumber or electrician or whatever, right? Like, right, here I am, like, come find me. Like, so essentially you're asking Google to help you raise your hand. They're raising their hand at the same time.
Right. Exactly. That's a perfect analogy.
So now you talked about backlinks. No, I talked about backlinks subtly, and you picked up on it.
Yes, sir.
Well, you talked about 2 different things. You talked about domain authority, which is, I'm assuming this is, if not the first thing, within the first 3 things you look at as a digital marketing agency when someone comes over, if they already have a website, right? Top 5.
Well, so the interesting thing about domain authority is it is a historic thing. So usually domain authority is tied to older domains, right? So so what is domain authority first? Okay. I'm sorry. So domain authority essentially, domain authority means the internet, the World Wide Web, has said that this is a credible place to get information. So the higher that authority, the more credible you are, right? So when we look at domain authority, it's arguable, right? Because if you're a relatively new business, or not even a relatively new business, if you're a relatively new domain, your domain authority will be low. Now, and domain, for everyone listening, is the thing that you're registering called www.WendellJunior'sChickenandWaffles.com. Right, exactly. So you know that domain, that noise isn't coming through, is it? No, I don't hear. Okay, all right, cool. I just want to make sure. But that domain authority it's a historic piece. So it's not dependent on how new the business is so much as how new the domain is. So another client that I currently have, they were asking if they should change their domain. And my statement was, if we can't find the greatest SEO domain possible, right? Like sometimes you see a website and it's like, you know, HoustonsBestWaffles.com. Right? As the guy who makes waffles, my butt hurts that I could not be first in that, you know, on that domain. But if we can't change it to that, then there's no reason to lose the authority, because his specific domain has been around for 10 years, right? It's going to take us some time to be able to catch up on that. So that domain authority is important. I don't necessarily consider it as a make or break thing, because it also is indicative of what you've been doing with your domain up until now, right? So if you've never done any marketing, your domain authority will be low. But now when we talk about the backlinks, right? So let's jump from, let's tie it in, not jump, let's tie it in. Let's tie in the backlinks. So backlinks, just it's another form of proving to the internet that you are what you say you are. So backlinks come in a variety of forms. The more popular your business becomes, the more you will get random emails from places offering you high domain authority backlinks. Backlinks are them taking your domain and putting it on another website, taking your web address, putting it on another website, and sometimes they'll link it to text. So like they'll put it on, just to use the example, they'll put it on Houston Premier Restaurants.com. And they're going to take my domain and they're going to put it under Best Waffles. They're going to link it back to my site. So that's essentially what a backlink is. It's a link that goes back to your site. Now, all backlinks are not created equal. You have to ask yourself, is this a local SEO campaign? Is this an SEO campaign? Is this a global SEO campaign? Oftentimes when you get the spam emails, it's going to be for high authority domains that are across the country, across the globe, which really aren't helpful for you unless you're servicing people in Australia. It's tough to find true local high domain, high authority backlinks unless you're looking at local publications, which can be difficult depending on what your marketing strategy is. But if you're gaining national backlinks that are relevant, forget the domain authority, that are just relevant to what you are, then your domain authority will slowly grow. But growing domain authority that's a long-term game.
All right. So what is the cost to business owners that don't engage in SEO work? They don't put this work in.
What is the cost? Well, it depends on what do they charge their clients, right? What do they charge their customer? So if you're a restaurant and you don't engage in any SEO, I venture to say, no matter how popular you are, because that's always the argument, but we get plenty of word of mouth business. No matter how popular you are, I've never met a business who turned business away, right? Restaurants always have a line. There's always a wait. They'll never get to a point where they say, hey, the wait's 2 hours. You can't get at 2 hours and 15 minutes. So you're losing, depending on the business, you're losing tens of thousands of dollars a month in revenue, because there's lots of people who will never hear of you. As someone who grew up in New York, lived in St. Louis for 4 or 5 years, and have been in Houston now for 2, other than New York, I don't know anything about where I'm going. I still don't know stuff about Houston. I find I actually follow a bunch of Instagram pages because I don't depend on businesses to do good marketing. So I hope the Instagram pages will steer me in local direction. But if you're a local business and you're not engaging in SEO and local SEO, you're losing tens of thousands of dollars a month, and you're losing your audience. Because if a competitor starts doing SEO or local SEO, you're now racing to the bottom. You will eventually be surpassed. There is no doubt about that.
And this is part of the reason why, and this is not the entire reason, but this is part of the reason why a business can move into an area that is in the same domain or channel of service or product and do better than the businesses that have existed there for some time, because
100%.
Because people just find that business because of what they're doing, like on their website and their social media marketing and all this other stuff. They move into the area, but they were working on SEO for this area before they even opened the doors for business. They were already referring to, so this business is located in every other state except for Texas. They're moving to Houston. They started working on their Houston blogs and coming to Houston 6 months before they got there.
Right.
So they started creating domain authority in that state prior to even existing.
I had a prospect once, and they were in the process of expanding, and they had a few locations, and we had a meeting, and I broke down all these different things. And one of the key things I told them was, as they continued to grow, they were creating a greater gap between their success and where they thought their success could be. Because if you don't start SEO at the beginning, it's really hard to catch up with SEO. It's not something that's there's no retroactive button. So day one is always day one. And the toughest part was getting this business owner to understand that if you're going into these new locations, these new localities, and you're not doing anything other than saying, hey, we're open, and hoping that the 10 people in the area that you know that are supposed to be really popular are going to post on their Instagram, where are you leaving the business after that post expires, right? Because social media posts expire, right? They have an attention expiration date. So when you're looking at, like you said, a business will come into town, or let's just say they don't even have other locations, but they're preparing. So their day one, they've got press releases ready. They've got all these different things ready, and they're kicking the door down as soon as the door is open. They're not doing a grand opening, and then 8 months from now they do their first piece of SEO campaigning. They're doing their SEO campaign, like you said, as they're putting the paint on the walls. They're starting to have the conversations. They're talking to local bloggers. They're talking, and again, just to use the food reference, they're talking to food bloggers so that food bloggers know this is the date that I need this stuff to come out. They're not waiting until they're open and hoping that they can backlog the information on their availability. But that's exactly how it happens, man. People come more prepared than the business owners that are comfortable at the location that they're at.
Yeah, look, I own a franchise company, MELD Fitness and Wellness. And, our goal is to expand across the country. We've been in Boston so my domain has been in use in Boston for over a decade, almost 2 decades.
Okay.
And so I rebranded the business before we launched the franchise. And, but instead of switching over to domains, we had our servers point to our almost 2 decade old, domain point to the new domain name, which would be the new branded business name, so that we didn't lose that authority that we already had, like in the area. And but part of what we offer to franchisees, and we talk about pre-sales and marketing and moving into areas, is this piece, right? You're going to do press releases leading up to a grand opening. You're gonna press releases that go out on the PR website, on the PR newswire. But beyond that, you also want to create a press release that's in the form of a blog, to create a backlink to the new website that is going to be located in an area, because it's going to share some of the authority of the previous website. So, like, even if it's not in that direct area, Google already knows. They already know, well, we validated this business back in Massachusetts. It has reputation. So even if it is in Texas, there's reputation there.
Absolutely.
And so, like, one of the things I try to get people to understand is, and this is why with SEO and getting content, and one of the things you said was so important, which is knowing your customer. So one of the things I talk about is creating a customer avatar. An avatar is basically like a little, if you think about an avatar in terms of a game, it's that little guy or girl or whatever, that animal, fuzzy animal that you choose to play a game with, that represents you and who you are. And so in business, a customer avatar is that individual that patronizes your business, the most ideal individual that patronizes your business.
Right.
It's so important for you to know who that is. I wrote a blog post about how to, actually, it was a LinkedIn article on how to identify your customer avatar, because it's so important to be able to do it. I gave 5 steps in order to do it. You have to pay attention. But the number one rule is paying attention when it comes to customer avatar.
Absolutely.
Who's swiping their credit card or giving you cash? Like, that's the number one way to figure out who your customer avatar. But is without knowing that, how can you even create content like for a blog on your website to even speak to the people who are going to buy from you? Even with chicken and waffles, a chicken and waffle restaurant, you should have a blog on there that you maybe post once a month, doesn't have to be every week, where you're talking about chicken or waffles, different types of waffles around the world, different types of chicken around the world. This stuff is so important.
Something that 2 things that you said that were like just golden. That specific prospect was going into the franchise space. And that was something I told them was a great value add for them to be able to talk to their franchisees, was having that process of SEO and local SEO already in place for them, so that they're not figuring out their marketing. The other thing too, so it's great to know that even though I don't deal in franchising per se, I was on point with that, right? Now the other thing too that you just said about the blogging piece, right? And blogging has come so far, right? I mean, like I said, I'm 38, right? So I mentioned that earlier. I'm 38 years old. So I remember back when blogging was something that we looked at as it was almost like a digital journal, right? Like that was what blogging looked like. And then one day someone made video blogs and we called them vlogs, right? Now, blogging has come so far to where it is truly a lead generating tool. Now, it is more of it can be a lead generating tool, but it's always an attention grabbing tool. So when you talk about these blogs, and even if no matter what business you're in, there is something you could be talking about on that site. And that is something that has been the biggest hurdle because of the type of customers that I have. Usually the age range, and getting them to pivot into realizing that blogging is a lot different. Because when they think about blogging, they're still looking at it from that, I'm not writing a journal online, Wendell. That's not going to happen. But it's like, no. If you're a chicken and waffle place, let's talk about, you can even talk about your batter, right? We can use 1,000 words about why you chose to batter your chicken. Do you use the same batter you use for the waffles? Like what different things are you doing than say another place is offering chicken and waffles, right? There's chicken and waffle places that pop up all over the place. Some franchises even offer chicken and waffles as a seasonal option, right? So that blogging piece, man, is paramount no matter the industry. It doesn't even have to be tailored towards your specific business, but definitely your industry. And you hit that right on the head, man. Definitely.
Yeah. And again, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, the technique of Google is an ancient one, which is that information for generations, for thousands of years in human history, were passed down through stories. Why? Because stories are more captivating. They tend to last longer. They're illustrative, which means that there's a part of your brain that connects with the story versus the other part of your brain that thinks about the logistics of the story. So for instance, the part of the brain now that deals with science is thinking about, okay, well, some of the facts of that story don't line up. However, there's the other part of your brain that aligns more with philosophy. That's just like, and that's like, okay, well, this story feels good, and it has some, higher moral lesson in it, and it has something that is learned, and it's illustrative. And so because of all those things, it has a greater impact, right? Because it appeals to the emotions. And so that's a different part of your brain. And so that is a very old technique that Google has modernized. And that's what this algorithm really is that they're capturing emotion in a bottle, and they're selling it back to us through search terms, through search results.
Right.
Like we want to feel good. The reason why we look for the best chicken and waffle place, because we don't want the worst. No. So we're trusting Google to tell us what the best. So whenever we say the best, we're asking Google for trust. We're like, okay, Google, I trust you to tell me which the best place is. And so if you're not even in the conversation, they're not going to find you. And then if you don't have reviews of people, social proof of people who back up your claim to be the best. So now people have found you, right? When we've gotten here, now why are you the best? Right. So now you need to tell me why you're the best. And this is another piece of SEO, which is reviews, I imagine, which is getting people to tell other people, give them the social proof why Wendell Jr.'s chicken and waffles is the best.
I wouldn't call it SEO just for the sake of SEO is truly search, right? But it's that reputation management piece, right? It's something that we tie into our local SEO piece. Not because it's a part of local SEO per se, but because, like you said, once we get you to a certain point in local SEO, we need social proof. Otherwise, it starts to just diminish, right? But that reputation management part, like you said, when we're talking about free ways to do it, you can definitely search yourself. Always do it in a private or a incognito browser to make sure that you're not getting any convoluted answers. But the other part to that too is asking for reviews. I'm always candid about our shortcomings, man. We suck at getting reviews. Like for ourselves, we suck at getting reviews. I can get reviews for clients for days, but for us, it's always, I don't ever want to bother my clients because I know they have way better things to do than to put 5 stars on something. Now, don't get me wrong. We have some really awesome reviews written across the internet because we use a few different platforms. But I mean, it's something that's paramount because, again, I used to say this years ago, nobody wants to be the guinea pig. No one wants to be the first one. Mm-hmm. If they know that they're not the first one, they're more inclined to do it. Mm-hmm. When we're looking at restaurants and some of these other places, and I posted the article my LinkedIn, but I can't remember the actual statistic, but it talks about how Google's handling fake reviews now, because that has become a very popular thing now that Google My Business has become something business owners truly use. Now people are abusing it. There's another thing that they abuse, but I'll go into that in a second. But those reviews aren't used to, people used to believe that the reviews can help you rank higher, but they don't. Google's proven that it doesn't matter how many reviews you have, you will not rank any higher. But what it does allow for you to do is the person that's ranked higher than you, but only has 3 stars, let's say you're 4 notches down, but you've got 5. You've now beaten them from a visual perspective, from a customer perspective, because now they see, even though Google said this is the best, like you said, they've got 5 stars. Let me check them out first before I go to the 3-star place. So it is definitely paramount to have that reputation management and ask for your reviews and tell them where you want them to write the review to. That's another key part, is to tell them where to go to write the review, except for Yelp. Yelp doesn't, they frown upon that.
I'm not a big fan of Yelp. Everyone who listens to this podcast knows.
Okay, can we pause right there for a second? So I knew this would work out great, and this is why, because I'm not a big fan of Yelp either.
Yeah.
I in the history of me with clients, I have always told people to be careful of Yelp. I won't do a 10-minute Yelp bash, but I know that for a business, from a business owner's perspective, Yelp is a very tricky place to be, and they've monetized reviews in a way that, and I hope you don't mind me saying it, but I think it's malicious, frankly. It's malicious. So, but yeah, you don't like Yelp either, so that's good.
It's like they own everything, you own nothing. Just remember that.
Yes.
And that includes the reviews. So
yes,
that's
Yelp is, they've monetized it to the point where it's malicious. I don't know if you've seen the latest things with Yelp, but like now they're charging for logo placement. They're charging for a bunch of different things now, and now they do it piece by piece. So it's only $4 a month if you want your logo there.
Yeah.
So
well, I haven't used Yelp as a strategy for years, so I feel comfortable with that, and I stopped taking their calls too. So there's that.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's good. I'm happy to hear that.
So the other thing too is I think people should know is that I actually think it's illegal to, as a business, for you to incentivize your customers to review you. I actually think that's against the law. I don't think that you're supposed to. You cannot pay for reviews or incentivize them technically, unless you indicate that you've incentivized them, or you've paid for it on your website. So for instance, even a gift card or something to give a review for you technically is supposed to be disclosed on the website. So the best thing to actually do is to ask for a review as a courtesy of doing business. So one of the things I say to people is you ask your customer, like, or you tell your customer, it's like, you've enjoyed doing business with us. We've done business. You've had a great experience. Okay. Well, as I help you reach your goals, help me reach mine, like, which is to have more people try to find me, and then that way they kind of give you the review. Now, whatever review they give you, however many stars, is up to them.
Absolutely.
But if you incentivize them to give you a public review in the public space, whether by cash or by any other gift, technically that is an endorsement.
Yes.
Not a review.
That is correct. Yes, that is correct. I hope that was not what I was insinuating there. I was not insinuating that you.
No, you didn't do that at all. But I'm just adding a footnote.
Oh, yes, sir.
Because
yes, sir. Certainly.
I don't want someone to get sued listening to this thing because you talked about fake testimonials, right?
Yes.
And so that kind of brought that thought to my head.
Okay.
Which was that if you are trading some kind of compensation, whether it's money or not, it could be a gift or whatever.
Right.
That's technically, legally, that's considered an endorsement, not an
endorsement.
Review.
Right. Yeah. And so something to piggyback on it, because when you said it, I was like, oh yeah, of course. But I wanted to make sure I didn't cross that bridge. Now,
no, you didn't do it.
Okay. No. Now the other thing too, to talk about those fake reviews and just reviews as a whole, there's a lot of black hat stuff or things that are really shady when it comes to reputation management and really SEO as a whole. And I always want to make sure that I take a moment to address those things, because we don't deal with any of it. And I hate all of it. I dislike it immensely. It diminishes people who do good work. So if there's ever a point where you're approached about fake reviews, there's a lot of places like Fiverr and stuff like that, they won't even do fake review. You can't even ask for a fake review anymore because it's frowned upon. And it's something that can get them hurt through Google, because now Google's starting to penalize not only the places where you get the fake reviews, but the places who post them. The other thing too, to keep in mind when it comes to reputation management, and I got to go back and find the term, but there's a term used for softwares that will reroute someone if they do less than X stars. So let's say you're using software X and they're doing reputation management for you. So they reach out to the customer and they say, hey, would you mind writing a review? Right. You write the review, but your review is 3 stars. When you hit submit, it redirects you to a new form that asks you, why did you only give us 3 stars? So in the eyes of Google, that is, it's against their policy. So if you're using something like that to filter out your bad reviews, it's something that if it ever comes to light, they can remove your Google My Business listing. So that's another thing too to remember, is anything that you do on the internet has the right to take you down. So like you can get to a point where, especially with bad SEO practices, where your site will never be searchable.
Right.
It'll never be searchable.
Before I ask you for 3 final tips to give individuals to start with tomorrow, there was one thing that you said that I thought I wanted to talk about briefly, which was about the stars. You don't want to have all 5. I mean, you do want to have all 5-star reviews. That's nice. However,
not realistic.
It's not realistic, and nobody is going to buy that your business has never gotten a 3-star review. Correct. And I know that for me, I will never go to a business with all 1 stars, and I will never go to a business with all 5 stars. Because how many times have you ever been to a business with 5 stars? And you're like, this business was absolute trash.
Right. There was no way. Right. There's no way this got 5 stars.
There's no way. I look I look for businesses with 4 stars or anywhere between 4 and 4.5 stars. I think those are probably typically the most honest businesses and interactions that you're going to find on the website.
The irony is we're closer to 5 stars, but I don't solicit 5s. It's people, something that I've learned in this last year is I always tell people, if you wouldn't mind, just give me an honest review. And because I build such great rapport with my clients, they feel like they're doing me a favor with giving me a 5. Right. So I don't ever ask for 5s. If you think I'm a 1, tell me I'm a 1. Sure. I had one review. They gave me 4, I think, because it was out of 5. They gave me 5 on all, and then one of them they gave me a 3. And I laughed because it was as honest as it could be, because it was the one thing that this client and I have struggled with, right? And I was like, okay, I can appreciate that. But ironically, most of our reviews were like a 4.9 on Google, and everywhere else we're probably like a 4.8.
Yeah, we're a 4.8 on Google. We got a 2-star review from someone. So we got a 4-star review from someone who was like, it was really good experience. Like, but she was just a person who didn't give 5 stars. Like, she was like, there are these people out there who are like, there's no 10s in the world. There's no 5s.
There's no perfection.
Yeah. So it was like 4. And then we got 1 2-star review because someone was like, oh yeah, you'll get good training there, but watch out for that $30 enrollment fee. So it's like, okay, that's worth 3 stars. Like, it was, but this is the subjectivity of humans. And I think it's a fatal flaw for business owners not to respond to reviews they get.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah,
just letting it hang out there. It's like, don't go back. So another thing is, don't go back and forth with someone, because that's a bad look. But if someone's like gives you 1, 2, 3, even 5 stars, you should respond to it. And then if it's a negative one and like it looks like they're trying to tee up for an argument, you said, say your piece and then back off. And if they respond to that like one more time, just let it go. Right. And then people will really see that you have your stuff together. What do you think about that?
100%. Responding to reviews is really important. Good and bad reviews, like you said. Bad reviews, we actually work with our clients if they do have bad reviews in a way to address the issue, own up to whatever the client or the customer is saying the issue is. If it was in fact an issue, we make sure that you own it. If there wasn't an issue, we have some tactful ways of not necessarily debating it, but just making sure that we're still owning that you were dissatisfied as a customer. But we have a few different ways that we walk them through that, but never go back and forth, because then, like you said, you just look like you look like this is your side hustle and someone's bothering you. You don't look like a business anymore.
Yeah, that's right. And you might look like you're coming off confirming what they're accusing you of anyway.
Yes, that too.
So you end up looking exactly like what you don't want to look like.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I want to finish off, Wendell, with you giving us 3 things that someone listening to this podcast could do tomorrow for free to improve their visibility locally.
So we already got the first one, the Google My Business listing. You're going to do that for free. We're going to both laugh at this one. That Yelp listing is still important, though, believe it or not. If you're a local business, you still want to claim your listing. So do it for free. Don't let them sell you anything. And the last thing is actually to make sure, I'm going to make it 3A and 3B. So 3A is go to Google, go to Bing Places and make sure that you claim your business there, because Bing is still a search engine. And that second piece is, if you are on social media, make sure all your social media profiles have your address listed correctly, and make sure that your phone number and everything is listed on all your social media profiles, and be active. It's free to be active on social media. Be thoughtfully active. Make sure that you're telling, who you are as a business. It doesn't have to look great. Just make sure that you're posting, man. I think we get that paralysis of trying to put together these Van Gogh-esque pieces of art to put on Instagram. Just post.
Yeah, it's funny because people like me are just like, I'd rather have a flip phone and never be found. But I have a smartphone because I'm a business guy now, and
right.
this is what I do. But I'd rather just enjoy my space with my flip phone, and
I can relate most days. Most days I feel the same way.
Do what I want to do. Heck, a landline phone, analog as possible. But
right. And just missed the call. I wasn't home. I missed your call. Nothing I could do.
Yeah. Come home and have to hit play on the tape recorder.
Right, exactly.
Machine.
Exactly.
Wendell, thank you for your time today. You dropped some gems.
Sir.
What I want to do is I want to invite you back, because we talked about SEO. We could have talked about a million different things, like how to blog and backlinks and all the other stuff in a little more detail.
Right.
And
website design. Yeah.
I want to get to that, and I want to talk about what I do. So website design is our next appearance. I do want to have you back again. I'm thinking in a few weeks we'll schedule so that we'll have you back, so we can talk about website design, because website design is so important. Because when your website shows up on your mobile device, you use your thumb to search to your phone. So when you flick your thumb, what do people see? So my marketing firm calls it thumb flicks. How many thumb flicks does it get to go from this to that and all that other stuff? So I want to talk about all that stuff with you next time we have you on. But your presence was definitely appreciated today. You dropped some serious bombs.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
How can people find you?
So the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. You'll know it's me. It's my funny looking face. It's Wendell Jordan. There's no junior. Right. I don't even think my dad's on LinkedIn. So it's Wendell Jordan on LinkedIn. You can reach me at Wendell@jordanmarketingconsultants.com, or you can just go to the website, jordanmarketingconsultants.com. Thumb around. There's a couple of free audits that we offer on the website. So you can definitely get some free tools there as well.
Great. And I will put all that stuff in the show notes. I'll put a link to your free marketing tool, and we'll put your contact information, including your LinkedIn link, in the description for what we're doing here today, so that people can find you directly. So thank you for coming on today, and look forward to your next appearance, where we'll talk about website design.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot.
I go get some chicken and waffles.
Yeah, man. I think that's the move for today.
Bye.